Hey there, welcome to Ask Daniel number 20, in which we were going to go over 3 emails, 1 comment, and 1 tweet, answer some questions here. And as always, nothing's medical advice, just general thoughts and comments that hopefully will be helpful to anyone that tunes in here. And with that said, let's jump right in and start answering some questions here. So let us start actually with what I felt was a pretty easy question to answer. And this is from Elizabeth from Talking Insomnia number, I believe it's 17, who wrote back 2 days ago, and she wrote the following. Hi there, wanted to follow up briefly. She said, a follow-up question, here it is. You mentioned that sleep efficiency wasn't as important when it comes to evaluating sleep. Could you say a little bit more about that? Is it more of the thoughts and feelings associated with sleep and the bed that are most important, vital to recovery? Okay, so kind of 2 questions here. The second one is the second question, like kind of what's the most vital to recovery? That's a more complex one. Like it's well, complex meaning there's a lot of questions that come up when you're getting past insomnia. But to answer, if somebody asks me like, what's the most important thing to somebody that wants to sleep well, I want to say what I always say. That's kind of set it and forget it. The most vital thing is set it, like spend less time in bed, but other than that, like try to shift attention away from sleep. With one more thing I want to add to that is this. If I meet somebody and they said like I've had trouble sleeping for like for so many months or so many years, and I told them, well, listen, just set it and forget it. Just spend 7 hours in bed, and other than that, forget about sleep. That wouldn't work, because that person needs more education. They need to understand why they have trouble sleeping. They need to understand about sleep efforts, that things we do to try to produce sleep actually produce insomnia, et cetera, et cetera. So just to kind of answer Elizabeth's question here, what would you consider the most vital thing to get past insomnia? I want to say it's a couple of things. One is just understanding that insomnia is caused by like your threat system, identifying sleepiness as a real threat, not a perceived threat, understanding the 3P model, which I talk about a lot, understanding that you have insomnia because of like belief systems and things like that, et cetera, et cetera. Understanding insomnia is super important. And once you understand, like, okay, now I see there's nothing wrong with me, there's no chemical imbalance, nothing wrong with my brain, I'm completely empowered, I can change this. Once you understand that, then it's set it and forget it. Then it's just like spend, 6 or 7 hours in bed, something like that. And other than that, just like try to forget about the whole thing. Just go towards the light, do things you enjoy. That I think is kind of the most vital. But now to the question that I felt like this is a pretty straightforward question. Was this one. What about sleep efficiency? Why do you say that's not that important anymore? Okay, so when I first started this channel, if you check out Insomnia Insight number 1, in which I wanted to like really start with kind of what I felt was most important, I started talking about like spending less time in bed, and I introduced the concept of sleep efficiency. And even if I don't think it's that important at all, actually, it doesn't hurt to know what it is. And so this is what it is. So if you spend 8 hours in bed, but you sleep 4 hours, you slept 4 out of 8 hours, then your sleep efficiency is 50%. You slept 50% of the time you spent in bed. And in kind of traditional CBTi, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, you use sleep efficiency a lot. You kind of tweak the amount of time you spend in bed to get a sleep efficiency of, let's say, 85% is what most people use. So, real practical, how would someone do this? Well, let's say somebody starts by spending 7 hours in bed, and they do that for 2 weeks, and they kind of like estimate how much they've been sleeping. And if they slept 85% or more, that's considered kind of successful, and they may spend more time in bed. If they're less than 85%, they should spend less time in bed to kind of get that sleep efficiency number up there. And sleep efficiency is considered like a surrogate marker of sleep quality. And now, the reason why I'm really moving away from that is the following, that insomnia thrives when it gets attention. The more we think about sleep, the more we try to figure out why we have it, the more we track sleep, the more we talk about it, et cetera, I use the word sleep here, but really, the more we talk about insomnia, the more we track sleep, the more attention the insomnia gets, the more we're kind of training our brain to think of it as a problem, think of it as a threat. It feeds from attention. The more we think about insomnia, the more attention it gets, kind of the stronger it gets. So what I feel now is that when you do sleep efficiency, when you really try to keep track of exactly how many minutes, how many hours you slept, et cetera, I think that actually can really backfire. I think it can really backfire. So I think it's much better to just set it and forget it again. Like, pick 7 hours and then just shift attention away from sleep. I do think that in the beginning, when you're kind of in the early stages of trying to really work with your sleep, work your way away from insomnia, I think it makes sense to do a sleep diary. I do believe that, but I also believe that sleep diary should be kind of minimal. It should be subjective. It should be like, it could be, I went to bed this time, I get up this time, and this is how much I feel like I slept. Or it could be something like, did I stay up until this time? Did I not stay up until that? And how much did I estimate sleeping? Or what my good friend and colleague Michael Schwartz does with his sleep diary, which I think may actually be the best way of using sleep diary, is completely subjective. Like, did I feel like I struggled yesterday? Did it feel good? How did I feel this morning? Was there any, something like that? So I hope that answered the question about sleep efficiency, Elizabeth. If not, as always, please submit a follow-up question. And with that said, let's go back in time a little bit more to a little bit earlier email. And this is from Katerina. And this came in, what was that, 2 days ago. Let's read this. Hi, Daniel. My name is Katerina. I'm a 40-year-old insomniac who have been recently listening to your podcast and found it really inspirational and helpful. Thank you. I've not listened to all episodes, so maybe you've talked about my issue, but I was wondering if you have any advice for me. And by the way, for anyone out there tuning in here, there are a lot of episodes out there right now, and I think it's better to just send a question rather than to kind of look for the answer. Not that it doesn't, I think it's, especially in the early part of like trying to work in insomnia, I think it's good to listen to a lot of my episodes, definitely. But I want to say, don't hesitate to send me a question, because every question is unique. So that's what I really want to say. Now, 6 years ago, I moved in with my husband, and my sleeping problem started. I had other issues, mainly with anxiety. I had 2 years of really poor sleep, trying to deal with it, mainly with acupuncture, natural remedies, relaxation techniques. What helped me in the end was autogenic training, which is a relaxation technique. I had an occasional episode since then, but nothing major. Always managed to rebalance it. Until last year, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, stage 4, and underwent quite a major hysterectomy operation and 6 rounds of chemo. I started sleeping really badly, started to freak out about not being able to cope with insomnia and cancer at the same time. My primary doctor suggested lorazepam, and I went with it. I got hooked, I admit. I really was not that bothered about checking the consequences, just was happy to sleep while being utterly depleted by the brutal chemo. I've been cancer-free since last March, which is a miracle, as I was given 3 months to live. I've been so scared to stop with the pills that I just kept taking them, not large amounts, but daily, ranging from quarter of the 1 milligram pill to half, occasionally whole. I started to wean myself off about 8 weeks ago, gradually came off. Even before I started this process, my sleep was getting progressively worse. In the past 2 months, I've had some good nights, some mediocre nights, and 3 nights no sleep at all. I do not sweat the 5 to 6 hours sleep nights as you recommended, but the whole night up is worrying me. Also, I worry about getting cancer back. I am not on the day 17. I think I'm on like day 17 without the pill. Is there anything I can help this process? Thank you so much for answering. I'm panicking here a bit. All right. So, Katerina, first of all, I want to say thank you for submitting this. And I think what we should do here is really talk about this 3P model and how chronic insomnia happens, and then go into some more detail. So this 3P model is like an explanation of why chronic insomnia happens, why you go from having kind of like temporary sleeplessness to like chronic insomnia, like for months and years. And so there are 3 P's here. The first P is predisposition. Some of us are just more predisposed to get trouble sleeping at some point in our lives. And some of these predisposing traits are having a tendency to worry, being almost like a perfectionist or like a type A personality, someone who's kind of a high achiever, being health conscious, and being something of an overthinker, overanalyzer. Those are kind of predisposing traits. If you have them, you are more likely to get insomnia at some point in your life. But the 2 important things here are, number 1, it is, unactionable. You can't do anything about it. It's a circumstance. Number 2, there are tons of people who have these traits who sleep great, so doesn't have to mean anything. But it's still important to know about this to kind of demystify insomnia. Start understanding why you have it. Okay, so that's the first P. Now, the second P is a precipitating factor. That's something that triggers an initial episode of sleeplessness. And that is also something in the past, a circumstance. It's not important, but it's good to know that there's typically is kind of some kind of trigger for initial sleeplessness that is normal. Meaning, whenever something stressful, negative happens in our lives, it is normal not to sleep well. If somebody said, I lost my job today and then I slept great, that would be odd. That would be unusual. We are supposed to sleep a little bit less when something stressful happens to us. It's really an evolutionary thing. When we are stressed, to keep us safe, we are supposed to be a little bit on guard, like sleep a little bit less, have more superficial sleep. So that response is normal. Now, the third P, that's where that's where it really gets important. Now, the third P stands for perpetuating factors. These are the things that take kind of a period of sleeplessness to chronic insomnia. And what does that mean? What does perpetuating factors mean? That's when somebody identifies sleeplessness as a threat, or I shouldn't say that person. I should say like in our brains, like that safety, safety part of our brain that's there to keep us safe. It says, okay, you got insomnia, you're losing sleep, that's a problem, you got to fix it. And what the brain doesn't realize is that it's a perceived threat. It's not a real threat. It's not like we're being chased by a bear or something like that. When we're chased by a bear, it makes perfect sense to like try to keep track of it. Where is it? Where am I going? I'm hiding here, stuff like that. But when the threat is sleeplessness, when the threat is perceived, it actually doesn't make any sense. The brain is confused and it starts taking you in the direction of like, okay, you got to threat monitor. You got to learn about this threat. You got to read up on insomnia. You got to read up on what it does, what it can do to your body. You got to try to figure out what you have. You got to investigate why you're having it. You got to figure it out. And it also takes you in the direction of like, you got to do something. You got to try this thing. You got to try this other thing. And the thing is that none of those things you normally try can actually produce sleep. The only thing that can produce your sleep is your own body. So you try things. They don't work, you don't sleep more, you get more worried because nothing is working, you try more things, they don't work, you get more worried, you try more things, you get more worried, etc., etc., etc. And that is chronic insomnia. That's why you have chronic insomnia. So now that we've gone over this like 3P model, let's actually quickly go over another thing, and this will be good for the entire episode. This is the great gas and brake model. So the only thing that can produce sleepiness is your own body needing to sleep. That's your gas. That's your sleep drive. Your kind of hunger for sleep. Wakefulness is the only thing that can produce that strong sleep drive. So wakefulness is the only thing that can produce sleep, but many things can block it. I should say one thing can block it, which is hyperarousal. When your brain is like heightened, but many things can cause hyperarousal, such as anxiety, worry, stress, excitement, and those type of things. So we have the gas, sleep drive, and we have the brake, that's hyperarousal. That's it. That's how sleep is regulated. There's nothing mysterious or complex about it. So with that said, let us go back to this email. So we read here that I had 6 years ago, I moved with my husband and my sleep problem started. I had other issues, mainly anxiety. So when I read anxiety, we can tell that you have this kind of tendency to worry. you have one of those predisposing traits, which is not a problem, but it's something that predisposes. So we know that. I had 2 years of really poor sleep. It started when I moved in with my husband. So we have kind of a precipitating event too. We have kind of two P's here. There was some change in your life that happened. I had 2 years of really poor sleep, trying to deal with acupuncture, natural remedies, and relaxation techniques. So there we have the third P here. Now we have perpetuating factors too. You're doing things to kind of try to produce sleep, try to escape the sleeplessness. Acupuncture, natural remedies, they're not really working, and that feeds into this like there's something wrong with me, etc. What helped in the end was autogenic training, which is a relaxation technique. Now, here's when it gets, there's more things to talk about here, which is whenever you experiment, whenever you try things like acupuncture, natural remedies, etc., you are on either the path of like frustration or the path of confusion, and so if you're trying something like acupuncture and it doesn't work, it doesn't produce more sleep, which it cannot do. It's impossible for that to happen. Only your own body can produce sleep. But when you try acupuncture and you're like, that didn't work, it didn't make me more sleepy, then you're on the path of frustration, hopelessness, nothing is working. You're on that path. Then when you try something like a relaxation technique and it seems to make you sleep more, then you're on the path towards confusion, because you think something kind of like something, you have to do something to make yourself sleep, and you've actually eroded your sleep confidence. You're on the path towards like not believing at all in your own ability to sleep. And so you might ask, like, so why is it that this relaxation technique did help me? Well, anything can kind of like artificial, like, it can give you kind of a artificial sleep confidence boost, if you will. You start taking medication and you kind of have confidence in it, and you start believing that this medication is making you sleep, it actually is working. Or you do some kind of relaxation training and you kind of have confidence, you believe in it, and you happen to sleep more, and then it strengthens your belief that this is going to work, etc. But in reality, what is happening is that you're kind of externalizing sleep confidence. You're starting to believe that something other than kind of just naturally sleeping is needed to make you sleep. So it may seem like a good thing, but it is kind of the path towards confusion, because you're believing something is needed to make you sleep. So say I had an occasional episode since then, but nothing, maybe always managed to rebalance it, which again, like, this is kind of a sleep effort. I had to do something to sleep better. And whenever you're doing that, whenever you're doing things to make yourself sleep, or you believe you need to do something to make yourself sleep, again, your sleep confidence is low, which means you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable because when something happens that kicks you into having trouble sleeping again, you're going to mode of like, okay, nothing's working. I have to find something else. I have to find this other thing that can help me. So that's why the path of confusion is making you very vulnerable. Now, then we have the cancer and all the stuff that happened, which is a big precipitating factor, of course. No surprise that is somebody that doesn't have insomnia in that circumstance. That's very unusual. That's when the lorazepam started. And the lorazepam, of course, is kind of sedating. And when you take away that, remember the gas and brake we talked about? If you remove the brake, the kind of hyperarousal, or you kind of you lower that, then you can that allows your body to produce natural sleep. So it can seem again that lorazepam is making you sleep, but it's not. It's just kind of sedating. It's taking away a little bit of that brake and allowing your body to sleep. And that's super important, because for anyone that slept using a medication, it was your own body that produced that sleep every single minute. Medications cannot produce sleep, and I say that so that can help boost sleep confidence. It was always you yourself, your inner, your own body that produced the sleep. So so far we've done a lot of education here, and it sounds like Katerina here has not taken medication for 17 days. And okay, there's been some, so I want to say this. If we go to this last stretch here, in the past 2 months, I've had some good nights. I want to say this. Whenever there is a good night, that is like real celebration. Like, I can sleep. There's nothing wrong with me, just tell friends, write it down, text somebody, like make it a big deal. That's an affirmation that affirms that there's nothing wrong, that you can sleep. That is super important. So that's kind of first here practical thing to do. I think celebrate every little positive thing, celebrate it. And when you're not sleeping well, you do the opposite. You ignore it. You don't tell anybody. You just pretend it was a hiccup, etc. So that way you're not doing the negative affirmations. You're only doing the positive affirmations. That I think is super important. Super important. Now, I do not sweat the 5 or 6 hours of sleep, but the whole night up is worrying me. So naturally, if somebody's not sleeping, I just remember something Mike said the other day, that if we miss a meal or we don't, something else happens like that. If we miss something, like if we don't eat for a whole day or something like that for some reason, it doesn't necessarily produce much anxiety. But when we lose the whole night of sleep, it does, and it's that sense of not having control. So so I completely understand it. But here's the thing. It's important to know that there's never been any like negative health consequences shown from little sleep. That's important. It's important to know that when you're up the whole night, it's that hyperarousal that is driving. There's nothing strange and unusual about it. And the more, again, the more I completely understand how you would worry about it, but also like the more you worried about a sleepless night, the more you're going to have of them. So it becomes really a game of finding evidence that being up the whole entire night is not that bad. It's not that bad. Only when you start fearing that less, will you have less of those completely sleepless nights. And how can you do that? Well, it really becomes of like a game of finding evidence to support that being up the whole night is not a problem. One way to look at this is like, there are times when we voluntarily stay up the whole night because we were out with our friends and we had a great time. We were out till 3 a.m. Then we came home. Then we just talking with them. And then we had to go to work the next day. We stayed up the whole night and we went to work the next day and we functioned, people do that all the time. People pull all night all the time. It's not that unusual. And a lot of people do surprisingly well, even after not slept at all. That's one way to think of it. Another one is to just go back in time and think about like find that one time when you were up the entire night and you did okay the following day. That if you just like, even if it just happened this one time, that's evidence. That's evidence that even if I slept the whole night, that I can do fine. I can do fine. Those things are really, really important. And I want to add 2 more things. One of them is kind of just my standard, like what should one do once one has understood Insomnia. It's like set it and forget it. Spend X amount of time in bed, not too much, and then kind of like completely try to shift attention away from sleep. And then the other one was this one: when somebody has decided to come off a medication, but they still, somewhere in the back of their minds, are kind of like giving themselves an opportunity to come back. Meaning, somebody said, I'm going to try to come off this medication and I'm going to really, really, really try hard. Well, guess what? That person is still keeping, a prescription somewhere, and they know that they have the opportunity to go back. Thanks, RN, for chiming in. What's your favorite name? I don't know. I just saw Star Wars with my kids, so I want to go Yoda. Yoda is a really cool name. All right, so when somebody gives themselves like an opportunity to go back, that often really, really sabotages the process. Because what happens is, at the back of your mind, you're like, you still have that lingering question, should I go back? Should I go back? Then every night is kind of like self-monitoring, like, maybe I should go back. Maybe I should take half of it. Maybe I should take it tomorrow. What if I can't get off it? What if you haven't kind of made a complete decision that I'm coming off this medication and I'm never ever going back on it, then it is really, really hard to do. So Katerina, hang in there. Any kind of follow-up questions, please write back, and otherwise just, again, hang in there. You can do it. You can totally do it. Okay. So that was, we talked to Elizabeth, Katerina. That was from this email. Now we go to this other email, which we have one question here. And this is from Lauren. This is from Lauren. I remember this was very nicely worded. Let's read it. Hi, Daniel. I was wondering if you could cover kind of a specific topic for those of us dealing with some pretty serious anxiety surrounding sleep. I've met several people recently that all seem to have the same thing in common. They dread sleep all day, and when bedtime comes, they're extremely aware of what their bodies are doing. So having hours upon hours of hypnic jerks, pulling themselves out of the transition to sleep, it even seems to be happening subconsciously. I'm still dealing with this myself. All of your responses have been extremely helpful and reassuring, but I keep falling into the same habit of preoccupying myself with the fears of not sleeping, fearing the jerks and twitches, and so when I go to bed, I can't think of anything else. Is there an easier way to combat this anxiety? It seems to have become this big, all-consuming thing that feels like a battle between the part of my brain that wants to sleep and the part that tries to keep me awake. I become so hyper-aware at night that I'm experiencing weird pre-sleep hallucinations that also force me awake once I notice them. It's extremely frightening, and I'm willing to do any and everything I can to get back to sleep again. So, Lauren, I want to really thank you for this email. I do believe, just like you say, that this is very, very common, like being kind of completely consumed by thinking about sleep during the day, that process makes it impossible to sleep at night. Now, here's some important things. Is there an easy way to combat this anxiety? That kind of question there's so much in it that is important. And I think the key thing is this one, that just like insomnia, anxiety cannot be combated. It cannot be fought with. It cannot be overcome. I used to say overcome insomnia, but I realized it's not a good wording. You cannot overcome insomnia. There's nothing you can do to kind of fight it head to head. It is only the opposite that helps. It's only like withdrawing from the fight that works. And why is that? Well, it's because when you decide to do anything to reduce anxiety, well, guess what? You're just giving it the fuel that it loves, its attention. When you go to say, like, I'm going to go out hiking so I feel less anxious, guess what? All the way hiking there, you're going to be like, I hope this helps. I'm hoping this is going to make me less anxious. What if it doesn't help me make me anxious? What am I going to do? Am I going to hike more? Am I going to hike less, etc.? Anything done to kind of directly attack insomnia or directly attack anxiety produces more insomnia, more anxiety. And even bigger picture here, whenever, this is what I talked about the other day, we have to go towards the light. We can never try to escape the dark. Anything you do to kind of shelter yourself from sadness and make yourself feel less sad is going to make you depressed. Anything you do to kind of escape anxiety, avoid anxiety, keep yourself away from anxiety is producing more anxiety. Anything you do to kind of escape insomnia produces more insomnia. And so you have to go towards the light. You have to do things that have nothing to do with sleeping better or being less anxious, that are just for pleasure, just for joy, just for enjoyment. It's only when you do those things that you can squeeze out the anxiety and insomnia. Ellen, who was a guest the other day or the other week, she worded it really well. She's like, insomnia can kind of like take a bigger and bigger part of your life. You have to do things that you love to do to kind of just squeeze out that insomnia, just do things, you just go towards the light. That's kind of the big picture thing here. Now, and something else that I feel is maybe more practical, or couple of more things. I think, during the day, you should go towards the light, as I talked about a lot, but that I think that becomes even more important when it comes to the 30 minutes, the 45 minutes, the 1 hour, the 2 hours before you go to bed. If if all you think about during the day is that moment when you go to bed and you're fearing that I'm going to have all these events, that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you look forward to the time just before you go to bed or even going to bed, meaning you have this Netflix show that you really enjoy, or you have this movie you're going to watch, or you're going to read this book, or you got something going on in bed or just before you go to bed that you look forward to, I think that can really help. So you're looking forward to something instead of trying to like, just go to bed and like hope that thing doesn't happen. And another thing is, like we talked a lot about on the channel lately, is that these type of events, like the hypnic jerks, like the sleep transitional events, etc., there's nothing one can do to prevent them from happening. That process again brings intention to them, and they happen more. They become stronger. But what really helps is like kind of letting them happen. Look at them as a sign that your body's about to sleep, as a kind of like welcome that. Okay, I had that thing happen. I had a jerk. I'm about to fall asleep. I'm ready to fall asleep, and not do anything to try to figure out why they're happening or try to prevent them. And we've seen like Linda has submitted like one kind of success story recently, where she talked about how that has worked really, really well for her. So that said, I hope, Lauren, that this was helpful to you, and stay in touch. Stay in touch. Okay, so let's move over to a comment, and this is from Vitamin C. And let's see here. This is the one. Okay, this is a comment on Insomnia Insight number 288. And Vitamin C said the following. Hi, Daniel. So in terms of my sleep, I still have the same issue where I feel the quality is bad. However, I found out that I'm anemic recently. Is there a correlation with low iron? Also, I'm building muscles. Can I build with low iron and bad sleep so that I could know to fix these issues first and stop going to the gym, as it could be a waste of time and effort? Thank you very much. Okay, so firstly, let's talk about sleep quality here. I want to say this, that if someone feels that their sleep is not good quality, they don't feel refreshed when they wake up, then if they have an obvious issue with their sleep, if they're kind of snoring real loud, they're choking in sleep, they have sleep apnea type thing symptoms, or they have strong insomnia, like it takes hours to fall asleep, it takes a long time to fall back asleep, I'm really struggling with sleep. If something like that's going on and they're not feeling refreshed, well, then there's something to work with. Have a sleep study, treat your sleep apnea, or work on your insomnia. But if somebody's kind of like, I'm just not feeling refreshed, I feel tired when I wake up, but there's nothing obvious going on with sleep, then it's probably not, sleep is probably not the culprit. Sleep is probably not the culprit. And that may seem like, well, then what else? Like it can seem like discouraging, but I think it's very important, and it's actually empowering. Like you one thing you can kind of like not look at, so you can focus on something else. And I think this is so important, because check out, Talking Insomnia number 16, where I talked to Grace. She had felt that sleep was not refreshing. She just felt tired, and she was trying to do all these things, trying all these supplements and medications and things to just like get better sleep quality so she would feel better during the day. She ended up smoking this like CBD thing, and it went down the rabbit hole, of insomnia. So I think when somebody's like, I just don't feel refreshed, but there's nothing obviously going on with my sleep, and they start like trying to work with their sleep, I'm very, very worried. I feel like they're going to go down an insomnia rabbit hole. That's number one. Okay, I found that I'm anemic. Is there any correlation with low iron? Well, I think the question is the sleep here, meaning, yes, for sure. Like if we have low iron levels, then there's no iron to build hemoglobin, and we become anemic for sure. But can low iron / anemia cause insomnia? Not to my knowledge. That's never been shown, as far as I know. Now, and again, like my belief is squarely that the only thing that can produce like chronic insomnia is like the 3P model, like our own reaction, perpetuating factors, and things like that. Now, what was the other thing here? Can anemia make you feel fatigued? I believe it can. That said, A lot of people that have like anemia that happens slowly don't really know it. They don't really feel it that much. And I want to say, kind of like, same thing with insomnia. There, if the more we try to figure out why we can't sleep, the more attention spent on it. Oftentimes, or all the time, really, the more time we try to spend on figure out why we can't sleep, the more sleeplessness we have. And I feel fatigue can be one of those. It can be like a trap there too. A lot of people are like, they don't understand why they're so fatigued. They try to like get all these tests done, and they like try to figure it out, and they read up on it, and it gets like more attention towards the fatigue, and it kind of becomes a bigger problem. Just like we talked about with Katerina, when you're trying to escape the dark becomes bigger. Like when you're starting to be fatigued, and you start like, I don't want to. I have to escape this fatigue. I have to prevent myself from being fatigued. I don't want to be fatigued. Then the fatigue becomes a bigger problem in your life. And so the answer is always to go towards the light, like do things you enjoy, and kind of drown out the other things. And that's when fatigue is like, if there's no medical reason for it. So I hope that was helpful. I'm building muscles. Can I build with low iron and bad sleep? To my knowledge, there's certainly no. I mean, from a poor sleep perspective, there's absolutely no reason not to go to the gym. And from low iron levels, I don't know of any reason why not to go to the gym. And I think the important thing is this. This is really important, I think. If somebody is like, I'm starting to feel fatigued, I'm not sleeping that well, and my iron levels are low, I think I should probably just not go to the gym and just try to work on my sleep and my fatigue first. Then to me, that's a huge red flag. That's somebody who's going into this like, I'm starting to be tired, I'm doing less things, I'm becoming more tired, I'm doing even less things, kind of chronic fatigue type scenario. So I think it's always like, if you enjoy the gym, then you should totally do that. You have to do so many things that you enjoy. Go towards the light, that you squeeze out any insomnia, any fatigue, any other problems. Like, you just go towards the light, just pursue that. I think that's totally the way to go. So yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. We have one more question or series of questions here to look at. And this is from Neil. Oh, where did it go? Where are you, Neil? There you are. Okay, let's see where this started. Sorry about this. These tweets are a little bit harder to navigate. Okay, here we go. So Neil said this following here. Let's just open this. Here it is. Part of my CBTi program is restricting my time in bed. I'm 4 weeks into this phase, and I've been very sleep deprived since the 3rd day. I just came down with a cold yesterday and feel miserable. Is this normal? ? I'm following a program from the sleep tracking device, an app called Dreem, D-R-E-E-M. Yes, it's intentionally misspelled. The part about dealing with excess rumination is easier, but I now realize how important there's restricting time in bed is. So I'm trying to power through this. So the first thing I want to say here is this, I think there's a lot of talk about like sleep affecting the immune system, etc. like that. I don't think there's any evidence whatsoever that short sleep or insomnia causes you to have a cold. That study is just impossible to create. And also, I don't think it's helpful at all to, when you have trouble sleeping, to think of sleep as being really, really important. That sabotages the whole thing. The more important we think sleep is, the more pressured we are to sleep, and the harder it gets. So that's kind of comment on that. Now, here's the thing with that. Like, I do believe definitely that spending less time in bed is important when you have trouble sleeping, for 3 reasons. And the first one is the one that's pretty obvious, and that's the one of like building sleep drive. That the less time you spend in bed, the more you spend time awake, the stronger sleep drive you'll have, the more you will need to sleep. And so like spending less time in bed is kind of exploiting your own body's sleep system to produce more sleep, certainly. But another reason, which I think is even more important, is kind of the psychological step away from trying to sleep. When you have trouble sleeping, you're doing a lot of things to try to produce sleep. You're avoiding things to preserve sleep. You have coping mechanisms. You often, sleep in the morning. You try to catch sleep whenever it happens, which is a big reason why chronic insomnia is a thing. So spending less time in bed is a psychological step away from trying to sleep that I think is super important. Thirdly, when you start spending less time in bed, you eventually have that moment where you kind of like, oh, sleep was easier, came easier to me, and that is like that's when the magic happens, when you start believing in the process. But here's what I think is what I really wanted to talk about was that even spending less time in bed, even CBTi can become a sleep effort. What I mean by that? Well, a sleep effort is anything we do to try to produce sleep. And that could be like not drinking coffee or taking melatonin or putting that sleep mask on, that's things we do to try to produce sleep. And as we talked about earlier, sleep efforts always produce more insomnia, because what happens is when you put that sleep mask on, you're like trying to sleep, you're like hoping, let's see, you're self-monitoring, you're producing more pressure, more anticipation, etc. Even spending less time in bed can be like that. If you think of spending less time in bed as kind of like, I'm going to spend less time in bed and this is going to produce more sleep, this is going to make me sleep, that becomes a sleep effort. If you go to bed and you're like you're counting time and like it's this time and now this thing is going to make me sleep, then it becomes a sleep effort. Then you're producing this anticipation, preoccupation, attention that insomnia loves. So spending less time in bed has to be a set it and forget it thing. You get up at 6 or something, you go to bed at 11 or something like that, but you don't think of it as like this is going to make me sleep. You just think of it as like this is going to kind of set the stage. This is going to set the stage, but it's not going to make me sleep. It's not going to become a sleep effort. And apart from like the set it part, I'm going to, forget it and enjoy life, etc. So it's important to know that even spending less time in bed can become what we call a sleep effort. And so I think, not only spending less time in bed, but knowing why you do it and how it can help, I think is super important. So with that said, I think there are other things here. Neil said, I found it helps to distract myself by listening to an audiobook. Absolutely, I think so too. And the important thing there is that I truly believe that audiobook has to be something you enjoy, something that you enjoy listening to, not like I'm going to listen to this super boring thing, hoping that it'll make me sleep, because then again, you're producing a sleep effort. You're trying to sleep. But if you enjoy that audiobook, perfect, love it. Now, one more thing. As I'm looking for the other tweets I wanted to comment on, it's interesting to me that a tracker has the built-in CBTi program, which I like. Any way you can get, about spending less time in bed, about CBTi is amazing. But the thing that makes me a little bit like, I feel it's a little bit conflicting there is that for someone that has trouble sleeping, it's almost always, I want to say, a good idea not to track sleep, to lose track of sleep. Actually, is what you want to do. You want to lose track of sleep. You don't want to be like checking how much did I sleep, how much REM sleep, how much deep sleep. That just gives some insomnia attention again. It makes me much more preoccupied about it instead of like going by quality. It's always quality. It's like, I think if there's anything to track, it is how easy did I fall asleep, how well did I feel today, how much did I struggle yesterday. The more we think about numbers, the more think about numbers is not helpful. We want to kind of not have that analytical problem-solving mode going. We want to go into more like creative, subjective, and not any absolute data type of mode, And here I'm just reading. Neil says, I was allowed to spend 6.5 hours per night, but as soon as I went to bed, I would suddenly feel wide awake and therefore have to get right back up. It took 2 nights of 3 hours of sleep per night to build enough sleep drive to fall asleep and then have 5 hours. It demonstrated the power of conditioned insomnia because I would feel super sleepy, but wide awake the moment I went to bed. Absolutely. For now, I still eat cannabis before bed. I was told to dial in my relaxation techniques before weaning. Okay, a little bit more to talk about there. And I guess there's a few more things here. One is, that conditioned response is very calming. You feel really sleepy the moment you're head hits the bed. Ooh, you're wide awake. And I think one of them is pure kind of conditioned response. Certainly, the other one is that when you're not in bed, you're not trying to sleep. Then sleep comes easy. But as soon as you go to bed, you're kind of like hoping, wanting to sleep. So I think it's just not good to know about that, and having that, like when you go to bed, like doing something you enjoy in bed, I think is great. Listen to an audiobook or reading something you enjoy in bed. That can really help, like distracting from kind of the process of hoping or trying to sleep. Now the cannabis is like, I don't know. I feel this way. Like if somebody is taking any medication, cannabis or something like that, before they go to bed, and they've done it for a long time, and they felt that and they feel like it's been helpful or not helpful. Well, I really think that it's important not to change a lot of things. So if somebody is on a medication or something like that, what I do in clinic is like, just stay on it, but just take it every night at the same time. Don't be like, I'm going to try not to take it tonight. That just creates so much preoccupation. Then you're going to be like, what, am I going to sleep without taking it? Or should I take a little bit? Should I take half of it, etc.? Either take it every night or not take it at all. I think is great. And then, you mentioned lastly here, like I've been told to wean off once I've kind of, really started to master these relaxation techniques. Relaxation techniques also tricky. They can easily become a sleep effort if you're doing things at night to kind of try to relax yourself. That is again that kind of direct attack. Whenever we try to like do things to make yourself less anxious, guess what? It brings more attention to the anxiety. It's again, you're trying to escape the dark. The dark becomes stronger. I think the important thing with relaxation techniques is if you're doing them, then know that they're just for pleasure, for enjoyment, to feel better. They're not to make yourself less anxious or to make yourself sleep. If you do a relaxation technique to make yourself more anxious, you become more anxious. If you do a relaxation technique to produce more sleep, you get more insomnia. So that's super important. So that said, Neil, Katerina, Elizabeth, everyone else, and now, okay, I almost did it again. Man. So where is the email from So that I really wanted to read here? It must be here. I forgot to comment on this email last Monday, and now I almost did it again. I feel terrible. Okay, last email. Here it is. Dear Daniel, first of all, I want to say thanks for your precious explanation on treatment for insomnia. I'm from Myanmar, which when I was a kid we learned Burma, Myanmar, and I've been suffering insomnia since 2014, taking melatonin, Xanax for many years, and they didn't work for me normal dosage. I also changed my job from full-time to part-time. By the way, my working environment is very stressful. My insomnia might be psychological insomnia, psychophysiological. Every night is a nightmare, and I'm afraid of darkness, and I stay in bed the whole night with eagle eyes. And at the time, I didn't know I was feeding my insomnia. I took Zolpidem for 2 months in 2018. Nothing happened. In 2018, insomnia became more severe, so I went and saw a psychiatrist and prescribed citalopram and olanzapine for 1 week. I took them only one day, and I cut off the drugs because I can't stand the side effects. Zero sleep for many days, and I increased the dosage of Xanax and melatonin, but in vain. I'm also a member of Facebook Insomnia and Sleep Disorder Group. Luckily, on day maybe 9 days ago, I read about CBTi in one of the comments of insomnia groups. She recommended to you your YouTube channel, Insomnia Insight. After watching your videos, I started CBTi. Now I am on no drugs, and today is my 8th day of CBTi. The first week is challenging, and in the daytime I felt drowsy, foggy, sleepy, tired. On the 7th day, I got 5 hours of uninterrupted sleep and felt fresh the next day. Sleep restriction and stimulus control is very effective for me, and I also do cognitive relaxation for my racing mind. I hope everything's going to be fine on upcoming weeks. Thank you so much. I'm watching your videos, and I'm now on Insomnia Insight number 54. So I want to really thank you so for this email, and I'm so sorry I forgot it Monday. I almost did today. I don't know what's wrong with me. But I want to say this: amazing work. And just a quick comment here, like the reason like melatonin Xanax really didn't work is because they actually cannot work. They cannot make you sleep. It is true that for some people they can kind of sedate them and allow their natural sleep track to kick in, but they cannot produce sleep. It's nothing strange, unusual. If someone takes the medication and it doesn't make them sleep, often it feels like something must be wrong with me. No, not at all. That's nothing strange with that. And overall, again, I just want to say I'm super, super happy that you've done well so early on, and when you have kind of like you're seeing progress early on, it's like really hold on to it, really play it up, really make that grow your sleep confidence, really make that tell you there's nothing wrong with you. You can sleep, you can do this, because it's not going to be smooth probably. Like there is going to be road bumps. There are going to be times where kind of like you again have a stretch of sleepless nights. You better set up but if you just keep going, you just keep going, you don't react to it, you don't question what's going on, you don't try things, you just kind of keep spending less time in bed and just enjoying life and just keep moving forward, you will get there. You will sleep great for the rest of your life. So and everyone else, I want to really, really thank everyone for questions. And I'll be back here Monday again answering questions. And so I hope you all have a really nice weekend. And I'll be back soon. Until Monday, bye-bye.